I think, okay, I'm gonna just say the thing that probably is gonna cause controversy. We all have unresolved trauma. No matter how much healing we've done, no matter how much work we've done on ourselves, you're never gonna get through this life being completely trauma-free and still living your life. Understanding first and foremost that you probably do, and all that is a beautiful invitation to work on it. It will show up in every aspect of our lives. We often will see it in the form of triggers. Something will happen and we'll have this like internal, I don't like this, or I'm going to get angry, or I'm going to have some sort of emotion towards it that triggers us enough to bother us that we change our energy, we change our state, we change how we're being. That's often a sign that we have unresolved trauma. It does show up in a lot of places. The body is a huge one. Our body will hold on to literally everything.
Welcome, fellow entrepreneurs and goal-getters, to Entrepreneurial Elevation, Unleashing Greatness Within, with myself, your host, Kelly Beveridge, and my guest today, who is also one of my sponsors, Tanya Lleigh with Coach Core. And I'm just super stoked to have her here. She's a mindset and embodiment guide. She's got so many modalities behind her. She's a Neuro-Linguistic Programming master practitioner and instructor, a practitioner of EFT, which is tapping. She's a matrix therapies, which is hypnotherapy, Reiki, and life coaching. And recently, she is the co-founder of Coach Core, which is a business tool and a community for coaches to really streamline the back end and the systems of your business. And I'm using Coach Core, and it is changing the game for me and my business and taking so much overwhelm out so I can do what I'm meant to do, which is connect with people. And so we're going to talk a little bit about Coach Core near the end. I'm just super excited to have her here. Coach Core is the proud sponsor of Entrepreneurial Elevation and my podcast as well. So Tanya, I'm so grateful to have you here. We've recently connected and met over the last 4 or 5 months. And you're just such a special person. You're a kind human being, compassionate. You're a giver. You just radiate love and abundance. And I just love being in your energy. And as we know, I like to call you a soulful badass because that's literally what you resonate. And I'm actually really excited for all the listeners because Tanya's going to take me paddleboarding this summer, which I've always wanted to do. So she also loves being outside and loves nature like me too. So Tanya, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me here.
I'm so excited to have you. And I love our topic today because it's really about how to create meaningful transformations in our life. And we're going to dive in and talk about your meaningful transformation and your story and journey that you went through, because you really went through a personal journey that has been a catalyst to shape the life of what you're living now. Yet let's go back. Let's start with your journey, Tanya. And we can just dive right in and start sharing about the journey that you went through that led to all this transformation.
Yeah, I've lived the stuff, lived the trauma, and that's ultimately how I got here. So my backstory, I grew up doing what I was told to do. So I did the post-secondary school. I got the job. I was working my way up to the house. I was doing everything as a society we're taught to do. And I wasn't necessarily happy in what I was doing. However, it's all we're taught, right? And I was following what I thought was best. I kept doing what I figured would be the next logical step. And this world has a lovely way of teaching us lessons when we're not on the right path for us. So for me, it was 2017, a few years ago at this point, I had a really hard lesson. So my father, I grew up, he had MS, so he was sick my entire life. So that was always something that in April of that year, he had actually taken a fall, broke his hip, and ended up in the hospital, which turned out to be a not so great experience. He went on this roller coaster of ups and downs with his health, started with a broken leg to other things going to at one point being in ICU, having conversations about at what point do we just not play this game and put him through this anymore, to him recovering again and thinking he was maybe going to get out of the hospital and all of these ups and downs. At the same time, my grandfather got diagnosed with cancer, ended up in a completely different hospital. I was bouncing back and forth between the two while trying to navigate a relationship with the guy I was with at the time. Fast forward a couple months, about May of that year, and my grandpa ended up passing. 2 weeks later, I came home to find that the guy that I was seeing, unknown to me, actually had a bit of a drug problem that, again, I wasn't aware of. And he had OD'd and passed away in our living room. And then 2 weeks after that, I ended up losing my father. In the series of just shy of 30 days, I lost 3 key male influences in my life. Needless to say, that kind of got me spinning, put me in this weird direction of what's the point? What just happened? How do I process this? How do I move on from this? It was PTSD at its finest. I think I exhibited every type of behavior you can possibly have for it. Being in and out of victim services will put you through a certain type of therapy if you have something traumatic, such as finding somebody happen in your life. So I went through months of this with a therapist in one of the local hospitals here in the city and never got any closure, never got any answers, never got anything that felt like I was actually healing and processing and figuring out what life looked like now. Because in that span of 30 days, my entire reality collapsed. Everything I thought I knew just shifted. And nothing that I thought was important seemed to matter anymore. Yes, I was still showing up for work. I still had a job, all of that stuff, but it didn't matter. I lost a bunch of friends in the 6 months that followed because they just didn't know how to support me and show up and be around. I had to deal with all of what happens after, especially finding someone, like closing your eyes and what that looks like and all of the responses. And this counselor, basically the best piece of advice she gave me was to write a letter to my father, which did help. I was able to release a little bit, however, didn't help the underlying shit that was going on. I went looking for answers after spending, I want to say, about 8 months in this dark place of I'm just going to hide, nothing matters. I'm just going to figure out how to wake up the next day and not be a crying mess on the floor. And I think it was about 8 months after that, I ended up seeing this Facebook post from a girl I went to high school with, of all things, who had become a coach. So I reached out to her and got help because I registered with one of her programs. And the help that I got was so profound. It completely radically shifted the way I saw things. And looking back now, I can see the beautiful moments that I had with each and every single one of these people. I can see how much better of a place they all are in, because disease, illness, it's all the same thing, right? It all is not a very good place to be in our lives. So they're in this much better place. And I can see, especially the finding the ex, we'll call him now, part as this beautiful blessing and almost invitation to wake the F up and to really just step forward into who I was. And it took a really long time to get there. However, that 30 days of my life truly shaped and altered the trajectory of everything past that. And it was really this, looking back now, beautiful way to wake up and this gift of truly being me and letting go of all these expectations and everything that I was supposed to have done and do and be, and all the things that we all get put on us, the labels we put on ourselves, the labels others put on ourselves, society, all of that. It was this beautiful way of releasing them and stepping forward into me. And that led to a slew of personal development, course after course after course, taking it and then wanting to do it and share this beautiful gift with others, because I don't necessarily believe that having mass trauma is the way that we should be waking ourselves up and creating this change. And my mission since that has been, I don't want anyone to ever have to hit that low of a point to have that moment of life can be what I want it to be. I can be what I want to be and not have to adhere to these invisible expectations that I've self-imposed on myself, or I've put myself in this like little box of this is what people expect me to do. And it's just been a roller coaster since. However, for me, in my personal story, it was trauma and it was death and it was loss that really was that ultimate, like, it's time to wake up and it's time to do what you need to do on your own terms. Because for each and every single one of those men, I know looking back, they wouldn't want me to continue on a path that wasn't right for me. So it was this kind of big release, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, oh my gosh, it does. And that you just shared a lot there. Thank you for sharing. And wow, what a journey you did go through. And those are a lot of traumatic, one of those would be a traumatic experience, let alone all three in 30 days. And in your story there, you shared the traumatic events that you went through. And then obviously you're, let's just say, for lack of better words, on the other side of it now, using it as a catalyst to support your mindset and your health and what you're doing now for your career. So a total different life trajectory. Yet there's a gap there, I'm sure, where you were in it. You were in the trauma. And let's talk about this for a minute. So let's go back to this because we all have traumatic events. I don't know if anybody can necessarily escape that as part of our journey, right? And it's all relative. But if you put all your traumatic events in a bucket, sometimes we would take ours back once we're through it because we know of the blessings and the benefits that after time, when we can come to terms with it, it brought into our life. Yet in the moment, how does this trauma affect our mental and emotional well-being on a day-to-day basis?
So much. And I love how you said nobody escapes trauma because nobody really does. And I think, especially in the last few years, trauma's almost become this buzzword where we all talk about it, yet trauma can be literally anything. Little trauma can impact you as much as big trauma. And when we're in it, it really comes down to, I think, how much fight we have in us in that moment. Because for me, stubbing my toe on the couch, if that's going to bring up something that happened years ago and that puts me in a whole spin, that can be the definition of big trauma. And in that moment, maybe I just need to lay down and cry and figure it out. And it might be that's how easy it is that it impacts me, or it could be the bigger things like losing people. And when we're in it in the moment, it can literally feel like the world is coming down on us. And for me, I wanted to hide in this secure little dark corner for the first little bit. I know for me personally, I went probably the wrong direction considering where I am now. However, I think it's a direction a lot of us go. And I relied on things like food or alcohol or vices to help me numb what I was feeling. Because as we find ourselves in this state where our mind is like in complete chaos, I just needed to not feel anything for a little bit. And I fully went into that space for about 6 months of just, I don't want to feel anything. My emotions completely turned off. And this is a very common response that a lot of people go through. Because at that time in life, it's easier to feel nothing than to experience what just happened and what we're going through. So it's this beautiful transition of trying to figure out, okay, so now I'm at this point where I'm numb. How do I move into something else? And for some people, they stay there for years or decades. Maybe they don't come out. Others will see this light at the tunnel like I did, where this is not what I'm here for. I'm not on this earth to numb myself and to let these negative emotions overtake me to the point where I'm just not me anymore. So to answer the question, it depends on the person. It depends on the trauma and what's gone on. And I think the biggest thing that I could say with it is any and all reactions are so normal. I think we get so stuck in this, I'm going to numb myself and I'm going to have a couple drinks and I'm going to not feel anything, or I'm going to do something, whatever it may be, that other people might disagree with. But if that's what I need to do in that moment, I need to do it. I need to own that because it's the only way that I'm going to allow myself to start pulling myself out of that cycle. We tend to assume that we should have certain reactions when we're in this trauma response or in the thick of the emotions. And that's not true at all. What we need to experience, what we need to do, what we need to feel is what we need to experience, do, and feel. And there is no right or wrong to it. So it's owning the fact that I'm in this space, I'm going to cry for a week straight, or I'm going to stop taking care of my body, or I'm going to push people out of my life, knowing that that's what I need in this moment. And that if those people or those events or anything that's meant to be in my life is meant to be, it's going to come back. And the only thing that you really need to focus on in that point is, what can I do for myself to start making myself feel better? Because the truth is every little step makes a difference. And if one day it's getting up and maybe not having a drink, then that's a huge step for you. If it's cooking a healthy meal, then it's a huge step for you, right? Or if it's reaching out to a friend, that's a massive step. So there is no right or wrong to the trauma response. It's just acknowledging that it is normal and that we
Yeah,
all do go through it.
absolutely. There's no playbook on how to react to traumatic events in our life. And I think I love what you're saying. It gives people compassion within their reaction so that they could work through it and move through it and be there for them when they come out on the other side. And what you say, just in the same sense, are signs and symptoms of unresolved trauma, right? You were in it and you then started to take the steps and pull yourself out. Yet, how do we know that we might still have unresolved trauma? Like, does it show up in our body? Is it with triggers, with how we react to certain things in our day to day life? Do we show up in relationships a certain way? Like, how do we know if we have unresolved trauma?
I think, okay, I'm gonna just say the thing that probably is gonna cause controversy. We all have unresolved trauma. No matter how much healing we've done, no matter how much work we've done on ourselves, you're never gonna get through this life being completely trauma free and still living your life. Understanding first and foremost that you probably do. And all that is a beautiful invitation to work on it. It will show up in every aspect of our lives. We often will see it in the form of triggers. Something will happen and we'll have this like internal, I don't like this, or I'm going to get angry, or I'm going to have some sort of emotion towards it that triggers us enough to bother us that we change our energy, we change our state, we change how we're being. That's often a sign that we have unresolved trauma. It does show up in a lot of places. The body is a huge one. Our body will hold on to literally everything. And it's actually, there's this beautiful website, this beautiful work of, I'm going to call it art, by Louise Hayes, where she actually lists off the different emotions or feelings or diseases in our lives and what emotion they're connected to. So it'll talk about, say, anger and the liver often go hand in hand. So if we're experiencing physical ailments, it's because of an emotion. And that's generally where unresolved trauma, if we continue letting it build up and fester, that's how it comes out, is in the form of disease. So we'll start seeing the body physically break down because we have this unresolved trauma. It shows up in relationships too, with our attachment styles. So if, and I'll just use me for an example, losing 3 men within 30 days, that has created this massive relationship gap for me where I'm like, men leave. Not their choice, but men leave. So I have more of an anxious attachment at times because I'm like, okay, I don't want to get too close, or avoidant because I'm like, I don't want to get too close because they're just going to leave. So it'll show up in different elements of our lives. And it's just recognizing, I think, when we start to feel different in any which way, listening to our body, it's listening to our emotions. We can feel our way into anything. If we're in tune enough and we're listening to how our body feels in that moment, that's a big indication that there's some form of trauma that is now trying to show itself to us because our unconscious mind is now able to process it and we're able to actually step in and take action towards it.
Oh my gosh, this is so interesting. What would you say are some effective strategies moving into what your skill set is? What are some effective strategies for, or therapies for coping and healing trauma, starting that journey?
That is a very big question because I am very much of the belief that every modality, every strategy, everything out there has its place. So it depends on what works best for you. A lot of our trauma, especially if we're getting started and we don't really know how to process and we're not necessarily ready to reach out and ask for help, because asking for help can feel like the scariest thing in the moment for a lot of people, is working on our nervous system. So our nervous system has either all of the stress and all of that lovely cortisol hormone pumping through it, or we're more in that relaxed and reset nervous system. And when we're in that relaxed and reset, we can start doing some healings, working on getting ourselves there. And that can be as simple as working on our breath. One of the things I have a lot of my clients do is when they feel that anxiety is just taking those 10 intentional breaths, just to let themselves calm down before responding, not reacting, responding. It can be getting out into nature and just being surrounded by the elements, feeling that wind on our face, the water on our feet, whatever it may be. That can bring us into that calmer nervous system. And then we can start responding. And then from there, of course, we can keep going up where there are tools like working with a coach or speaking to a counselor or talking to a friend. All of these things are going to help us get out and process what it is that is going on. And depending on who you're talking to, obviously the level of expertise on the other end and being able to steer that conversation and guide you in a direction changes. However, just getting started, and honestly, the littlest things are the biggest steps. Like that breath work is always one of my first go-tos because it seems to be one of the most underrated things that we think to do in the moment. But if we're in a moment, we're triggered, we're having a response, and we take the time to do those 10 intentional breaths, everything shifts. Our entire state, our entire body shifts, and we're able to see things in a different way. That would be the big one I would start with. And then obviously, as a coach and someone who's gone through the coaching and believes it to my core, because it is something that radically changed my life, speaking to somebody is always recommended, because especially people who are trained to see different things, they can see things and pull it out of you in a way that it might take you years or decades to see and completely change everything for you.
Oh my gosh. So important to have that first courageous step to ask for support. And like you said, not always easy to do, yet so worth it. And I know one of the practices that came your way during your time of leaning into healing was NLP. And that's a big piece of your healing journey that then you started to become an NLP practitioner yourself. So can you share with the listeners what is NLP and how did it support you?
So NLP is neuro-linguistic programming. It is, in essence, the study of how our behaviors, our emotions, our memories, and our experiences mixed with the language that we use. So both our internal thoughts and the words we're actually putting out into the world. It's how that creates our programs, our reality, like everything around us. So it really breaks down that what's going on in our mind and what we're vocalizing out in the world actually comes to fruition. It changes how we see things. It filters our reality. It causes us to see things, not see things. It's this beautiful study of really how the brain works and how our language impacts it. And that was really the stepping stone for me, was really understanding that what I was saying to myself, the thoughts I was having were impacting how I was behaving, how I was acting, how I was recalling some of the events that had happened, and almost even creating stories of things that weren't actually a part of that experience because I was so caught up in that mix of it. And then with the NLP came the matrix therapies, and it's this beautiful fusion where I was able to then actually go back to the event and completely relive it in a safe, guided space that allowed me to process it and move on from it. And it was that experience that really made me want to do it and share this gift with others, because I can't even begin to explain how different I felt after having this experience of seeing it in a complete, like there are no words. It's something that shifted within my brain in the most beautiful way. And it's something that I am now very privileged that I get to give to others as well.
Oh my gosh, I love this. It's reframing the story around an event so that it doesn't become, as I know, I have stories that I've held on to for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And it's really just my own made up version of one event that has now become a big way that I make decisions, that I approach life, that I set my goals, who I attract into my life. Like these events really can be huge one way or the other. And so how does NLP traumatic events so that it reduces that negative impact and that negative story and outcome?
It's a lot to do with the thoughts and the behavior. NLP itself is a lot about the linguistic side and the brain side. So we can look at the brain chemistry and the language of it. It's more of the hypnotherapy side of it that allows us to have the experience to reframe it. So I lump it all together. However, when we can go into that state and we can see the situation for what it is, and we can reframe it using our words, that's what ultimately shifts things. Because I know a lot of people, and I'm just going to use like a random example, but how many of us have had something happen and we've made up like 16 different stories where we've overthought the hell out of it. And this hasn't even happened. Like this whole gap is something that literally occurred in our mind. Yet how many of us hold on to this gap and then use that as future data down the line? So what the NLP does is it allows us to start seeing the gap for what it is and be like, okay, so this is not my reality. This did not happen. And now I can choose my words, which means I can choose my thoughts, which means I can start shifting things to see them in a way that I'm constantly reiterating in my brain as to what I want and what I choose. And I'm eliminating that opportunity for me to see things in a different way. And it really comes down to the words that we speak and the thoughts that we have.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And what would you see once you started to practice these and lean into the therapies for yourself? And then obviously, I think one of the best ways to have something ingrained in our life is to then go and coach it, right? Go and coach it and give it back to the world and back to others. And I'm around so many entrepreneurs, and usually the reason why people become an entrepreneur in their special modality or field is because something happened to them in their life that guided them to something that helps them heal. And then they wanted to share that with others. How has your belief in yourself changed along your journey? And how do you feel about yourself now, like with self-love and self-belief and what you're capable of?
Oh, that's a very big question. Dramatically. Honestly, when you're constantly in this state of knowing what you're putting into yourself or what you're allowing yourself to think or what you're saying is being reflected and projected out to you, you become much more mindful of what you're consuming, what you're saying, and all of that. And that does honestly, that self-love aspect, because you surround yourself in it, you immerse yourself in it, and it impacts your confidence beyond belief. I don't know. I never had confidence in myself growing up. I was the awkward kid who didn't really want to do anything. I was like literally the tomboy in the hoodie who played all the sports that I was like, I'm just going to stick to the swimming pool or the basketball court and everything will be fine. And I never had that confidence to actually show up and be me. And going into my 20s, I got a bit of it. However, I never truly loved who I was. Like I never was able to look in the mirror and be like, yes, this is me. I own it. I am a badass and I love this about me. And it wasn't until I started really working on this stuff and like you said, having these experiences and reframing my life that shifted. And it ultimately just became so ingrained in who I am because I had repetition is the biggest way to build those brain cells, right? Because I'd repeated it on repeat, not only for myself, for my clients. Because to me, I couldn't ethically and morally show up and not be 100% me if I'm expecting somebody else to do it, right? So I had to be even more with it on that. And it just constantly ingrained in my head to the point where now, I do love who I am and I do have that confidence and I do allow myself to shine and show up because I've consistently ingrained it in my brain. And it can be that simple. For me, it started with sticky notes in the bathroom mirror. You're a badass. You are worthy. I love you. And just seeing that every day and constantly ingraining it, knowing that words matter. If I'm going to preach anything through this podcast, that's going to be the biggest thing. Words matter. What we say to ourselves matters. It completely started shifting things. And it wasn't an overnight kind of thing. It slowly happened over time. But I look back on that girl I was even in 2017 when all this happened. And it's a night and day difference. And I honestly attribute it to this modality and everything that I've worked on since.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Words do matter, right? How we talk to ourselves does matter hugely. I had a buddy on the podcast a couple episodes ago, and the topic was unconditional love. And it's really a journey to loving ourselves. And same thing, it's ongoing, right? It's ongoing, constantly improving, falling in love with ourselves. And so I love that. And okay, so you're in this part of your career, you've taken all this education, you've learned all of these therapies and modalities. You're now becoming a coach and are a coach, giving back to others and helping them through their traumatic journeys and having their meaningful transformations. And then you become a founder of Coach Core, right? So talk to us about that. How did that partnership come about? And what is Coach Core and why are you so passionate about it?
Hi, I'm Tanya, and this is Julie, and we are the founders of Coach Core, your all in one solution for building and scaling a successful coaching business.
At Coach Core, we provide you with everything you need in one place. You can house your courses, manage memberships, run email campaigns, and create stunning websites and funnels, all with our easy to use platform.
And it's not just about the software. We offer built-in coaching and mentorship, helping you implement best practices from certified NLP practitioners and story brand coaches. And that's just scratching the surface of what's inside.
And that's why we're excited to sponsor the Entrepreneurial Elevation podcast with Kelly Beveridge. Kelly is a thought leader who inspires and elevates entrepreneurs worldwide.
We believe in the power of community and continuous learning, and this podcast is a fantastic resource for any coach looking to truly grow their practice.
So join us on this journey. Tune into the Entrepreneurial Elevation podcast for insights and inspiration, and visit Coach Core to transform your coaching business today.
Coach Core, your path to coaching success.
So Coach Core is co-founded with myself and my good friend, Julie Wheeler. Actually, I'm going to change that. My best friend, Julie Wheeler. She'll be mad if I don't use that word. We went to high school together. So we've known each other since we were kids. Didn't really associate too much with each other, and then ended up coming back together about 5 or 6 years ago. Again, Facebook, reached out to each other, had a coffee. Next thing, we've been talking, and we're talking more and more. So we joined forces that way. And we were literally sitting in the office one day because we worked together before that, and just sitting there looking at each other going, you know what? We are both coaches. We've both gone through what we need to get through to build a practice, to build something that creates that impact. What did we need back then that we wish we had? And how can we support that and give that to others? Because both of us very much have this win-win mindset. And there's so many amazing coaches out there doing so many incredible things, and no one knows about it. And it was this heartbreaking reality of how can we support coaches to do this in a way that creates that impact? They can go out and they can create this massive ripple on the world, and we can just help everybody as globally as we can find that happiness, find that self-love, find that joy, do their own healing. And we sat down and had this conversation. I remember it clear as day. We were literally on the floor with big poster boards and colored markers, writing down everything we wish we had known when we started our businesses and our coaching practices. And next thing, we've got etched out an entire kind of back end business in a box for a coach. And it is this beautiful platform that is designed ultimately to take the overwhelm out of building the tech and starting out as a coach. Because nobody starts their coaching business being like, you know what I really want to work on is funnels. I want the automation. I want to make sure all of this back end stuff works. No, we get started because we're like, I want to make an impact. I want to help somebody. The tech stuff is nobody's first choice in my experiences with coaches. So giving coaches this platform at an affordable rate with the support and the marketing guidance that both Julie and I have was just this beautiful combination that ultimately created Coach Core. So it is its own software platform where coaches can come in and build the entire back end of their business. So it's running seamlessly in the background. So you have your automations, you have your marketing in place, your website, your funnels, your courses, because as coaches, we want to get our information out there all in one place without having to figure out, how do I get this one to talk to this one? Or what about this? And how do I make this work? So we're freeing up time, taking the overwhelm out, and ultimately allowing coaches to do what they want to do, which is coach.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And I'm using Coach Core, and everything you just shared is so true and key, right? And as an entrepreneur, you girls did what entrepreneurs are meant to do is, what is the demand? Where are people struggling? What's the problem? And let's solve it. And I can tell you, for me, it's a game changer in my business, because you're so right. Like, I'm a coach because I want to make an impact. I consider myself a people person. Don't ask me about psychology. Obviously, I realize there's skill sets with advanced growth to lean into and start to develop and learn for myself. Yet I don't want to spend all my time on the back end when I want to be doing what is going to serve the community I'm in, which is being with the people. And so Coach Core is just awesome. And you know what I love about what you girls have done, and maybe speak to this, is that you didn't just create a system, right? And I listen to a ton of podcasts. I've been around multimillionaires my entire last 10, 15 years of my career. And what most of them will tell you is, one, in order to be successful, it's important to have systems in place, especially if you want that time freedom piece of your business and eventual leverage. And number two, it's about who you spend your time with in the community you're around. And then obviously number three, having a purpose of making an impact, because then the money will follow. And so can you chat about, one, the value of having systems, and then number two, why you guys chose to also make this about community? Because Coach Core isn't just the system. You actually have blended both.
Yeah. I really wish I could remember. Julie has this beautiful acronym for systems, and I wish I could remember what it stood for. But the general gist of it is, systems basically stands for saving you time, energy, and money. Because when you have those systems in place, like you said, you don't have to worry about all these other things. And really, Coach Core came down, and when we started building it, it was to create those systems. Because if I know that someone can go to my website, click a button, and they're getting contact with me, even if it's via email that I'm not writing over and over again, but I'm still making an impact, that changes things for people. Knowing that I can go somewhere else for a week and still have my business running, those systems become the foundation of the business. So having them in place is critical to really being able to expand your reach, like you said, and making those meaningful connections. And really, being coaches, we couldn't just put systems together and put people in this program and be like, here you go, that's it, see you never. That's not who we are as humans. So that community element is what was born of that, because we don't want to just give people a software system that they can go and have all this in here. We want to help you. We want to support you. We want to be there for you and really help you with your marketing message, your mindset around what you're doing in your business, help you with the tech side of things, because we need that from time to time, and just really create this almost like family where you feel connected. Because another thing we really notice in a gap in the industry is a lot of coaches will go out and they'll get certified, but they have no one to reach out to. They have no support system. They have no network of people who are doing it too. And that can be a really lonely road for an entrepreneur if you don't know or aren't closely connected to people who are doing the same thing. And we really wanted to marry that in, because when you're surrounded by people who get you and support you and have the same drive and passion you do, that's when magic happens. And really, that is why the two really came together. Because yes, we want to take the overwhelm out. Yes, we want to give you the tools. Yes, we want to make it so that you can show up in the areas that you actually want to show up in. We want to support you. We want to be there. We want to be your cheerleaders at the same time.
Oh my gosh. And you guys are doing just that. I can speak to that, and from experience, that you guys are a lifesaver, and everything you just talked about is bang on as to why I love Coach Core. So just thank you for creating it. So Tanya, we're talking about meaningful transformations, and look at your life transformation from, let's just talk about this one chapter in your life from 2017 until now. You're like, from what you just described, you went through from your traumatic event until the journey to now. And I really believe your story is really inspirational for people who are listening, who are maybe in their season of the traumatic event, that it does get better. It does get better. And now you're on your way to building a 7-figure business, right? Which is absolutely amazing. And so my question is, what has been one or two of your biggest takeaways during this chapter of your life, from where you came from to where you're at now?
The biggest one is a single word: grace. It is so easy when we're in our building, especially when we're coming out of the trauma and we're like building ourselves up, to be hard on ourselves, to expect that we should be further, or to compare ourselves to other people. And really, it's just having that grace to know that if it could happen any other way, it would. And we are exactly where we're meant to be. And we're owning it. We're taking the lessons that are coming with it. And everything that comes, every stop or every hiccup or every moment of pause in that journey, is all designed to get you to where you want to be. And having grace for yourself is one of the biggest, if not best gifts that you can give yourself. So definitely that would be one of my biggest takeaways, is just having that grace. And I think the second one would honestly be, it's never going to look how you think it's going to look. It's not going to be pretty. The journey is going to have its ups and downs. It's not going to look how you think it will. And that is a wonderful thing. Because if everything happened the way we wanted it to and the way we think it would, life would be boring. So honoring that, you know what, if something comes up or another moment of like what the actual happens, it's often steering us in a direction that we're actually meant to go. So trusting that how it shows up for you is how it's meant to show up for you.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Not always easy to do, yet having that level of awareness, right? That, hey, wait a minute. How do I choose to believe that this is actually the direction I'm meant to be going now? And so awesome, Tanya. Okay, we're going to start wrapping up. So I have 3 questions I always like to ask, and then we'll get you to share where people can find you, because I know people are going to want to know about Coach Core. They're going to want to know more about your story and the coaching modalities you offer, and just to follow you. And so my first question is, what is your definition of success now for your life?
I think it's success. It's happiness. It's finding that happiness and enjoying the moments that bring it to you in the way. That is,
Love it. Just being happy,
yeah.
happy. Yeah, I love it. I resonate with that for sure. And what would you say would be 3 things people could do to unleash their inner greatness?
I think find acceptance for where you're at and own that that's where you're supposed to be. To start viewing things as feedback, because there is no failure. It's only feedback. And believe in yourself. That unwavering faith that it's going to work out, and leaning into that faith that this is my life and this is the trajectory I'm on.
As you're sharing that, it almost makes me feel calm, right? It almost takes the stress and anxiety out of the situation when you follow what you just talked about, right? Just choosing to believe. Yeah, that's so cool. And okay, so based on your message today, what would be a call to action or an action item that the listeners can do sometime this week, just to maybe address some unresolved trauma or create a step towards their meaningful transformation? What's something that the listeners could do this week?
Listen to your emotions. As your week goes on, as the days go on, listen to and acknowledge the emotions that come up. And when they come up, what happened right before that? Really just leaning into and tapping into, what am I feeling in this moment and what just happened? Because that's going to tell you where the trauma is connected to. It's going to tell you what feelings might need to be looked at, and also how you're feeling about a situation, a person, event. So really just lean into your feels and allow yourself to feel them.
Yeah, the opposite of what we do when trauma arises, which is attempt to numb ourselves, just allow ourselves to feel our feels. And I have a favorite saying, ABC, which is awareness before change. Before we can ever create change in our life, it's having that awareness. So I like that, right? Just have some awareness this week of our feelings. I'm gonna practice that. Thank you so much. And Tanya, oh my gosh, you just are such a great guest. You shared so many wonderful nuggets and tools, and I think this is a great topic because it's going to support everybody who's listening. And so where can people find you? What are your social media handles? Where can we learn about Coach Core?
Yeah. So social media is the best way to find me, at Tanya Lleigh. Lee is Leigh. So Facebook, Instagram, I'm on both of those. Coach Core, you can visit coachcore.ca. That is our main website. We also are on Facebook and Instagram. Same thing, Coach Core. That's the best way to find me. My website, I would like to say, is up and done and beautiful. However, you know what happens when you're building it for other people? You don't build it for yourself. So mine is currently under construction. But yeah, social media is the best way to get a hold of me.
It's on its way. It's on its way. And Tanya, just thank you for being here. Thank you for being a guest. You're a new friend in my life, and I have a feeling we're going to become lifelong friends. Thank you so much for being a sponsor for Entrepreneurial Elevation. I'm filled with so much gratitude for you and Julie for being my sponsors. I feel that we're perfectly aligned. And I'm really grateful for that. I'm excited for what we're all going to do and collaborate on together for the future. And everybody who's listening, go and check out Coach Core. If you're a coach or an entrepreneur, or you have a business where you want systems and community and support, it is the answer. It's that answer you've been looking for. So go and check it out. And Tan, just thanks so much. Have an awesome day. And I'm excited to go paddleboarding with you in the near future.
Me too.
So great to have Tanya on the episode today. Just a wealth of information. And if you're out there and you experienced a traumatic event, or there's something in your life that you're having a hard time healing from or moving through or living with, I encourage you to reach out to Tanya and ask her for support, get more information on the different modalities that she has available to you as they've worked for her, as you've heard on the call today. And possibly there's something that can support you in whatever it is that you're going through. And so just thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much for listening.